was like, who is this guy? And the first thing you should know is I'm one of the luckiest persons you'll ever meet. I'm lucky for a few reasons. I'm lucky because in 1971, when I was 5 years old, my mom and dad brought me from Colombia to the United States, where I got an opportunity to be part of the greatest country on earth. I'm lucky because when I went to school up here in the Midwest, I met my wife Bridget of 34 years, and I'm happy that everywhere I go, she's with me by my side. We have four great, amazing children, so I thank God every day.
I'm sorry.
I'm lucky that I was able to put together every cent I had in my life to buy a small, little, honestly pretty crappy dealership in Cleveland and turn it into one of the largest sellers of luxury automobiles anywhere in the central United States. And I was able to build 14 more dealerships with no partners, all on my own. Something that would only happen in America. I sold that business 3 years ago, and I was lucky enough to be able to start a technology company using something called blockchain, which nobody ever heard of, had to explain, got sick of explaining it, and that company is now owned by 5 public companies. I sold my shares in that company last week. I do have to correct the chair just a tiny bit, because I have not thrown my hat in the ring. The hat's here, the ring's there, but it hasn't been thrown for the United States Senate. But I want to explain why I'm thinking about doing that. Because honestly, most of my friends don't understand it. They look at me and say, you've lived the American dream. Go to the Bahamas, buy a boat, sail away. And then my wife says, but just you? And the reality is, the country that I came from to the country I came to are starting to look remarkably similar. We have a government that just today announced an indictment of a former president. That's Banana Republic level stuff. For a basic misdemeanor at 7 years old. We have a government that shut our economy down and told us who was essential and who wasn't, and forced us to take an experimental vaccine or risk losing our jobs. We have a government that spent $10 trillion of our taxpayer dollars. And do we have better schools? Do we have safer cities? Do we have better infrastructure? Do we have a better military? $10 trillion extra dollars, and all 4 of those things are worse. And I've come to a conclusion, and Congressman talked about it. It's not Democrats, it's not Republicans, it's career politicians who run for office, tell you one thing here, and then go somewhere else and vote very differently. They run for office for one position, and then immediately start running for a next one. It's people who think that going to DC is a lifelong career, and not serving your country. There's a man who said that if you've been in D.C. more than a decade, you're corrupt. That man was Sherrod Brown. And he's been there 30 years and 20 years before in state government. His entire adult life, Brad, he did not give you advice. He has done nothing else. He has accomplished 0. He says he's for the American worker. If I go down there, I'm going to be for the American worker. I'm going to put policies in place to make sure we have what I knew this country was about, which is a growing and thriving middle class. That everything that we do is looked at and saying, is this good for the American worker? That's what people in DC should be doing. And by the way, my boss, not that one, said if I'm given that honor, I'm going to do it for 12 years, and then I'm going to come home. And then maybe go on that boat and hope that that boss gives me the health to do that. Because this is about setting a deadline for yourself and saying that in this window of time, you're given an opportunity to do something for others, for your state, and for your country. I know one thing for certain. This country gave me every opportunity in the world to succeed. If my parents had brought me to literally any other country, I would never have accomplished a fraction of what I've been able to do here. And I owe this country that debt. But we cannot continue down this path. We are losing our nation because career politicians who only think about themselves have sold us out. I will be making a decision in the next couple of weeks. Bridget and I are going to spend a lot of time talking about it because, as Congressman knows, it is a soul-sucking journey. I will have my life turned upside down. I'll have my family's life thrown upside down. I've already had, maybe from Republicans, maybe from Democrats, I don't know, accused of being a Colombian drug lord. Which, by the way, you shouldn't accuse somebody of that, because if that were true, not a good idea. All right? I'm saying. Let's just throw that out there, okay? But also accused of being an atheist. Think about that. How do you answer a charge like that?
Wow.
How do you dignify a comment like that? It's very sad, but if I do this, let me tell you what I'm not going to do. I'll never cave in. I will always fight for you. I will never back down. I will never go down there to get along with other senators or congressmen, although this one I like a lot. Okay? I will give a crap what the media says about me. Okay? In fact, if they're insulting me, I know over the target. And I will leave there in 12 years with the knowledge that I at least gave it a shot. And I have one last message for everybody here, and I'll turn over the microphone because I'm certain the chairman is about to rip this thing off my hands. Everybody's got to do a little bit more here. Everybody in this room already does a lot. You're the 0.01% of politically engaged people in this state. You do so much already. But Joe Biden was right about one thing. This is a battle for the soul of our nation. You have to dig a little harder, row a little harder, get involved a little bit more, make a few more phone calls, research people's voting records, understand where they really stand, not what they say, but what did they do? Did they cozy up to the Democrats? Did they sell you out when they didn't think you were watching? Did they cave in to the woke mob? These are things that are completely and utterly unacceptable. And you have to be the ones that educate those that aren't taking the time to get educated. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for having an amazing county here, a shining light in Central Ohio. Send some of that love up north to Franklin County. Believe me, that